right, Sean. So welcome to the podcast. And it's been great having you here. It's been quite some time that I've been looking to have you on this podcast since we interview like a lot of
Yeah.
agency and SaaS owners. So first of all, great to have you here. Welcome.
Hey, thanks for having me, man. It's great to be here.
Yeah, it's my pleasure. And so yeah, let's get right into it, Sean. So
Yeah.
like in India, if I talk about specifically, there are a lot of agency owners and SaaS founders who specifically know about you. But for the people who are just unaware or just getting started into the agency game, I would let you to introduce yourself in your own words and let them understand.
Yeah, sure. Well, I mean, my name is Shaun, and I'm a co-founder of High Level. It's an all-in-one white label platform that's marketing automation, CRM, website builder, you name it, kind of all in one. But you can white label and resell it as and build on it as your own SaaS. And in the agency space, and I think in a lot of spaces, adding software is now really how you're going to make a lot of money and scale your business versus a more traditional service-based agency model.
Right. So Sean, specifically, I just wanted to like how did you get this idea of building like Go High Level?
Oh, sure. I mean, the thing is, we got, like most of our ideas, we got a lot of this all from our customers. So we started off with a super basic version where we were basically doing two-way text messaging, and we were doing reputation management, but we were actually selling it out to small businesses directly. And initially we had some success, but what we ran into very quickly was that these small businesses couldn't set this up themselves. And so we got very lucky. We got a phone call actually randomly from a marketing agency who was actually serving one of our customers at the time. And he said, hey, I'd like to see what you guys are doing for my customer. And we got on a call and showed him. And he gave us a ton of suggestions, which was awesome. But more importantly, what he did is he opened our eyes to the fact that small businesses can't really serve themselves when it comes to technology and software. And so we really pivoted at that moment away from small businesses all the way to agencies. And so from there, it was really just about talking to the agencies that we worked with, continuing to get their ideas and implement them. And we just slowly built High Level up day after day. And in fact, we still do this today as well.
Great. So Sean, like how did you get into like High Level? Like, this is your first venture, or like most entrepreneurs who like try to
No,
listed several different things?
gosh, I don't even know what venture number this is, but we had a couple of failed ventures in the middle. But prior to this, my last successful company was a company called Invoice Sherpa. It was a accounts receivable automation software platform, which is a fancy way of saying we used to send people text messages and emails automatically to remind them to pay their invoices. So I'd say officially this is probably like I'd probably say it's like my third or fourth software company, but it's probably my second successful one.
Wow. Okay. So at that moment, like when you tried like so many different things, what were you feeling like? How was the motivation? Because when you're building like a SaaS company, it's like you're pouring in a lot of money and the funding and everything, and you're still at that phase where things are not quite working yet. So how did you keep up your motivation at that point?
Well, it was super hard, for sure. And we had really tough days. So anybody who ever tells you like this stuff is easy, they're just lying to you, or they just don't know what they're talking about. But for me, I was super lucky. I had an amazing co-founder initially who is still a co-founder to this day. His name is Varun. He's my CTO. And then very quickly thereafter, the guy who actually cold called us, his name is Robin. He's now our third co-founder. And I have no idea how to do this, so it's great advice to give, but not something I can tell you how to do. But I was just fortunate to find two amazing individuals who couldn't have been better co-founders. And so I think when you have other people in the fight with you, who are at the same level, when you have those crappy days, you have somebody you can talk to who understands what you're going through, and you just kind of get through it together, and just keep pushing and figure a way out.
Right. So, like reaching to a point where you have reached now, I mean, still, you have been, pushing yourself to go hard. So, like, how do you manage all these different departments in your company?
Great people. I am as bad at the things I used to be bad at today as ever. And what I've learned is, you have to really try to understand your strengths and weaknesses. and don't, and I wouldn't say there's not a weakness you don't want to improve, but at some point you also have to realize you can only be good at so many things. And so once you realize what you're good at and what you're not good at, figure out those edges and find people to fill in the gaps. So my other two co-founders are radically better at me, better at what they do than anything I could do in that same area. And we've really grown the whole company that way. So, it's really about try to find people who are just superior to you in all of the areas that are important that you aren't good at. And and the sooner you do that, the better you're going to be, because that means you can let go of the things that you're sort of like half doing well or half doing it all, and you can go and you can spend that time and energy on the things that you really feel like you're talented at, but not have to fear that those other areas that are important aren't getting done well. So I think it's really about just understanding strengths and weaknesses as quickly as you can, and getting someone else to help you with those places you're not good at.
Right. And Shaun, like, how did you go about finding those people? I mean, events, joining networking groups.
A lot of it initially came from our community. So High Level is an incredibly community-driven app. Our Facebook community has been a place that we've talked to people since the beginning of our company, and we really just fell into it because we were like, well, how do you get feedback from like a bunch of different people all at the same time? But from there, a lot, we really started to see people who, maybe they ran in agencies at some level or something, but that isn't necessarily what they were good at or what they wanted to do. Maybe they were more technical, or they were more into sales, or they're more into whatever. And so we recruited heavily from our own community early on, and it was awesome because you kind of got to see their strengths before you ever hired them. And so it was kind of a unique way to do it, but also kind of cool.
Right. So how do you like go about managing those people, since you have like all the right talent and all the people where you're not good at, right? You have those people.
Yeah, great managers. Because see, I'm not a great manager. I'm terrible at management. That's a weakness of mine. And so I have people who who are really good at sitting down and I don't know, whatever they do, KPIs and going over it and talking to people and helping coach them and this and that. I mean, I have people who are talented at that, who help me every day manage those people. So I'm terrible at managing, so I don't manage. Can barely manage myself.
Right. Great. So like how did you went about, like, since when you started out with High Level, of course the things that you were doing at the initial level, you're not doing them right now, right? So like, what is your role as of now in the company?
Maybe.
What are some things that
so actually that's an interesting one, right? So I think there's an implicit assumption that's the case, but I would sort of push back on that and say I actually do almost all of the same things now that I used to do. And why I think that's important is back to strengths and weaknesses. So, what I would say one of my strengths is knowing how to connect with customers and bridge the gap between, in my case, our customers and our dev team a lot of the time. And because what you'll find is that, that your team members will be working tirelessly to do an awesome job for customers at all points. But there are instances where people will just miss something, that they'll think, well, this problem is less important, this other problem is more important, but they're not seeing the impact to the customer. And so a lot of the times I'm talking to customers and I'm getting that feedback, hey, wait a second, you guys are missing how important this is or how big this issue is. And this doesn't have to just be like issues, it could be new features, like, hey, I don't think you guys are really paying attention to how big this new feature can be. And I'm really good at listening to customers, understanding how this thing is happening to them in the real world and translating that back to the right teams to take action. And so I would say I always used to talk to customers, and I still talk to customers every day, because that in my mind is a strength of what I can do and how I can contribute, but also something I think is incredibly important. So while it's true that I don't do every onboarding call like I used to, or I don't jump on every Zoom call to run down bugs, things like that, I still run down bugs on Zoom calls. I still do onboarding calls. I still talk to customers every day, because I don't see any less value in it today than I ever did. And so no, I would say there's this common concept. It's like people will say things like, well, what got you here won't get you there. Yeah, maybe, kind of, sort of. Like, that's not holistically untrue, but it's not holistically true either. I think too many people think, well, I'm important now, so I need to stop doing what I was doing before. I disagree. I think what what got you here has a lot of the magic of what will get you there. So for me, it's certainly I'm in more meetings than I used to be, but that doesn't mean I like it. And I try to stay true to what I've always done.
Right, right. And certainly to the size that the market share that you have taken, I mean, even to that extent, doing all these meetings and everything, that must be a hell lot of a work.
Oh, sure, but I mean, doesn't everybody work hard?
Sure, sure. So, Sean, if I talk about India, right? Go high level is something that has been,
I love India
significantly. You've been to India?
7 times.
Okay, where? Like recently, where did you visit?
Always Chennai, because that's where we used to have an office. But I'll be in. I'll finally get to come to Delhi in August. We're gonna have a big team event, and so we'll go to. I'll get to go to Agra, and where else are we going? Jaipur. So
Yeah,
it'll be a lot of fun.
yeah, yeah, yeah. I mean, Chennai is the SaaS capital, so I mean, Salesforce, Zoho, all the big
I don't
companies.
know. Be careful. The guys in Bangalore may disagree with you.
Good one. All right. So, Sean, like, how did you see the growth of high level in India? Since you have all the data and reports that you must be seeing, how does it
Well, I mean,
contribute? Because
okay, so I'm super excited to be talking to you today because yesterday we launched our RazorPay integration, really, to me, which was the big missing component
yeah,
for India, because, obviously payments are a big part of it. And I think Stripe has some India presence, although I did just read they turned it into invite only. So that was interesting. So I'm excited we got RazorPay out because I think RazorPay is going to not only allow agencies, to sign up with us, but more importantly, allow those agencies to go out and actually work with local businesses and, and give them the payments that they need, right? And you know what it's called, but that whole like QR code scan payments thing you guys have going
yeah,
on, which is super cool.
UPI.
Yeah, there UPI, right? RazorPay supports that versus no, everybody outside of India has no clue what that means. So I love that we can finally support the local payment methods that are most important there. I think it'll allow us to blow up the market there in a big way.
Right, right, right. So, do you see that India is an emerging player when it comes to the agency, agency game? Since I see a lot of my friends have
Absolutely,
been into
absolutely. Well, I mean, I don't know that. I mean, I think so. It's very likely that's true. I'm sure. I mean, India is a very big place, so I'm sure there are already a lot of agencies there that. But I'm just excited because I don't think that we could meet them where they stood as much as we can as of today. But the beautiful thing for us is we have an incredibly large team there, so we have a lot of on the ground folks. And I also think that's very cool too, because I mean, I've been working with team members in India for a very long time, and most of the time in the past years it's always about folks there creating solutions for folks elsewhere. But now it's pretty exciting to think that we're creating a platform that can actually also be used natively by the people who are building it. So I think that's even more exciting.
right, right, right. So, which aspect do you specifically find interesting in India? Like if you were to hire somebody from for your team.
Oh, well, we hire almost everybody we can from India. So you name it, we've got it. We have, I mean, my co-founder is, again, very lucky to meet the people I've met. My co-founder is from India. So early on, I mean, and then I actually hired him for his first job in India, in Chennai. So, I got an opportunity early in my career to see the exceptional talents of Indian engineers, and having an Indian co-founder, it was just natural for us to put engineering there. But subsequently, we've expanded into customer service and support, data analytics, accounting, all kinds of. I mean, it's just a vast pool of some incredibly intelligent people. So there's very few roles there that we don't hire. In fact, I can't actually think of any. So yeah, I think the talent of India is sort of this misunderstood or underappreciated resource, but not by us. So I feel very fortunate to have the opportunity.
Great, great to hear that. And this one question that I have, Sean, is like a component of two. So like what are some of the characteristics that you see in the top 1% agencies and the agency owners that make it to the top?
Yeah, I mean, it's all about scalability. So I think the appeal of the agency market is that it's an easy to start business and it has a low capital requirement. But the agencies, where I think most people get themselves into trouble is they start doing these services, which when they talk about them, they sound very like one size fits all. But when you really dig into it, they become these bespoke services. It's sort of like example would be like, oh, I'm just going to do websites. Oh, okay, cool. Websites. Well, but websites are totally a different thing to everyone. So the people that go down the services route, they get themselves stuck because they're constantly being called by their clients and being told, I'm going to change this, I'm going to change that. So the best, the most profitable, most scalable agency owners these days are all SaaSpreneurs. They're selling technology-enabled solutions that are scalable. And I want to be very clear, they're not just selling software and saying like, here's a piece of software, have a nice day. They're taking that software, they're creating a box solution out of it, and they're making it work for their client. But what they're not doing is they're not making a custom bespoke thing every time, right? So it's this middle ground of taking the tools, customizing them for the industry or the outcome, and then selling that same outcome over and over and over and over again. So it becomes a very scalable solution. Those are the agencies that are making the most money and that are scaling.
Right. So just based on your answer, like if someone were to, start their own SaaS agency or, company, so what should be their exact step-by-step action plan, right?
Well, the number one thing they should do is they should start incredibly simply. So most people, you walk into high level and you're going to see 500 features and you're going to be like, wow, it's amazing, but how could I learn all of this? And where do I start? Here's what you do. You start with one feature and you sell one feature and one feature only, right? And there's a lot of one features, but simple examples are like, you put a web chat widget on anybody's website and I guarantee you what's going to happen is you're going to start capturing leads for them from the traffic that's already coming to the site every single day. And right there, that's a product. And what are you delivering? You're delivering leads. And guess what? If you ask any business, would you like some more leads today? Everyone's going to say, absolutely, I want more leads. Well, there you go. You just gave them more leads. Use technology to do it. It's incredibly scalable. You can charge them a very low monthly recurring price to do that. And there's a gajillion businesses who need that, who want more leads. So start super simple and over time add features, but add them very selectively, package them up, and don't feel like you have to know everything to get in and make money. You can do it with one feature.
Right. So if you were to like put yourself in, someone who is using GHL, right, for the very first time, how do you go about like creating your offer? Since everybody in the market these days is, offering lead generation services, how would you basically create an
but there you go. So that's a perfect example of how you be disruptive though. If you look at most people who are offering lead generation services, they're saying, I'm going to go run Facebook ads. It's going to cost thousands of dollars. And then you're going to have to pay me this and pay me that. Yep. And guess what? That's expensive. So you can walk in the door and say, I'll provide you leads for, $59 a month, $97 a month, whatever, very inexpensively. And it doesn't have to be on a per lead basis. You don't have to run ads and it's not this big rigmarole, right? It's a very, very simple, quick and easy thing. And so you can be very disruptive in all of those places. And again, all you have to do is get your clients an ROI positive result. And I think it's very important. Most people think you got to shoot the lights out. You got to do this over and above amazing job. No, you don't. You have to produce more revenue by a reasonable margin than what you're charging. And right there, you're being successful. Now, that doesn't mean you can't go higher. You can't do more. You can't, add on to that, whatever, but you're going to stay in there every single month forever if you're creating an ROI positive outcome.
Right. So how do you like advise people should go into this? Like should they focus just on one service at once, or should they simultaneously test and?
Well, everybody's a little. Reasonably you could offer 2 or 3, right? But you should, and again, not service, but 2 or 3 solutions. But what I would do is I would make them general. I would focus, and then who are we going to target here? Who are we going to sell to? I'm going to start local. I'm going to stay local because the great thing with local is that you have a lot of advantages, right? Local, you probably already know some business owners, what the weather was last week, the big things that are going on in town. You can walk into these places. You can create real relationships with people. In the past, the whole thing is like, oh, pick a niche. It sounds great on paper. Like I'm going to become the best at dental or at lawyers or whatever. But the reality is that you can never create a connection with these people at a distance like you can locally. And even going all the way back to when High Level first started, when I was talking to agency after agency after agency, the agencies that were local, these are, I provide websites and SEO and PPC and blah, 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 but I just do it for local businesses. I have no niche specific, blah, blah. They had the lowest churn rates ever. In fact, they had, I would say almost always they had no churn. They didn't even know what the word churn meant. And then I would get on the phone with people who are like, I'm focused on dental or I'm focused on legal or whatever it is. And they would have churned through the roof. And the difference is simple. When invariably every client is going to at some point become upset for whatever reason. and the local agency can jump in their car or on their motorcycle and race down to the client and say, hold on, I'll be right there to help you. And the guy who's niched out and going remote can't do that. And the difference is that people quit when they don't feel like they have an emotional connection, or that people don't care, or that they're not coming to help. And so this is why I think local wins every time.
Right, right, right. And specifically, if I talk about in India, like, the biggest challenge that most of agency owners face when they're starting out is they say that, the business owners that we're targeting locally, they don't have like a budget, or, they're not prone to this kind of investment, or they don't understand. So how do you, advise them to actually go about that?
Well,
Should they be?
what do we know about? I mean, we know that every culture is unique, right? And India is very cost conscious. So you start you got to start that way, right? Like if it were me and I had to target India, I would be going door to door, and I'd just be straight up offering it for free for a month, just to prove to them that I was capable of delivering a lot of value. And because we can track those leads all the way through, right? We can track them all the way from capture to close. We can show that business owner at the end of the day, here's not a list of people that registered, here's a list of people who walked in your store or walked into your establishment and bought your service, whatever. And we can show them the value. And now we can walk into charging them every month, because at the end of the day, it's really simple. If we can show them customers they didn't have before, and we can show them the value of that, they're crazy not to pay us. And that's how I would approach it.
Right, right, right. Specifically for someone who is into like coaching business, as I am, like I was into, fat loss coaching program I was
Yeah.
offering. So let's say, how should, someone go about that route? Should it be like
Well, I
webinars,
mean, I think
one-on-one calls?
yeah, I mean, I think so in new markets, obviously there's the challenge, right? So like if you're one of the first people to market, you're right. You have a big education issue, but the positive side of that, right, is that you also have a huge green field. So, you could say, well, if you're doing a coaching business in the US, it'd be so much easier. Well, no, not really, because yes, sure, everyone knows about it, but there's a gajillion competitors, right? But now in that market, you're going to have to spend a lot more time educating people on the benefits of it and why they should do it and what it's all about. But net, you should also have more success, because there's a lot fewer people that you have to compete with. But start thinking about how do I show value without at first asking for time or money? And that is often about content. That is often about webinars, and it's often about trying to create a free tier that you can then move up to a paid tier. And it's really about creating that content. And now there's also community, right? We have private communities where you can bring people in and you can educate them about all of this. And a very small percentage of your customer base will ascend, right? But that's okay, because a couple of things. One, that the free community actually, even if I'm in your free community, and let's just say I'm never going to pay you, I'm still an advocate for you. I'm still telling people about your community, and I might know somebody who is a good paid customer for you. And because I'm recommending you, I think that's huge. Also, India is a massive market. The other thing I would be very conscious of is the affiliate motion. Giving people the opportunity to earn an affiliate commission based on recommending you. I mean, it's insane. I mean, India is so big. And also the other thing is it's so diverse, and it's so geographically, I mean, it's a small country physically, but when you really get there, all these things, but I mean, I remember going to Chennai and I was like, well, how many people live here? And I can't remember the number. It was like 12 million people. And I was like, at first I thought, well, wow, that's amazing. That's huge. But then I'm like, wait, 12 million, let me see. If I add up the other big cities, that's not even close to 1 billion people. Where is everybody? But the reality is they're everywhere. They're in the villages. They're out in many places. And so an affiliate program there could go like wildfire, because you need that sort of local hand-to-hand sort of recommendation. And there, I think India is also still in very much of a culture where, yes, you have all the online, and yes, you have all the digital, but you also have a lot of the, the tribal and the colloquial and the sort of, people talking to people and sharing sort of person to person. So I think affiliate there would be just a monster success.
Right, right. So is that something that you've been working on this year?
Oh, we run our entire business on affiliates, and we have an affiliate management software product inside High Level. You could do this right now today. We also have private communities. We have all of that. Yeah, I mean, all of that can be run inside High Level right now.
Right. And one more thing is like regarding the Go High Level. So
Yeah.
which is one of the most important aspects that you think that agency owners can take advantage of, which you find that people are not doing it right now. Do you think
Oh, I
there's a
mean,
loophole
it's
there?
it's definitely the affiliates and the recommendations. I mean, it's so funny because all of us do this every single day. We have our friends say like, "Hey man, have you seen this? Or have you bought? I just bought this. It's amazing. You should check it out." Well, guess what? An affiliate program is really just incentivizing your customers to share with their friends. And if you think about it, if there's a million things you experience every day that are good and bad that you might want to share. But if somebody says, "Hey, listen, if you share that, I'm going to pay you money for it," it's sure going to help you remember to share that if you like it. And that's actually what's cool about it. People aren't going to share things that are terrible because it's their reputation that's on the line.
Yep.
But heck, if you like something and you could make money sharing it out to your friends, why would you not do that? That's crazy. And a lot of people, it's not just friends, it's not like just your buddies, it's also colleagues, it's other people in your market who, maybe you're in a group with them or something and they're not your competitors per se, but like, and it's a simple idea that you're like, well, why would I not share that out, right? So and being able to get a recurring payment for that, it's huge. And it can be used in a coaching aspect, but it could also be used in the local aspect. I mean, if you're a hair salon and you have a customer, don't you think that customer is going to know other people like them that would buy your level of service? Of course they would. So use your customers as a natural tool to create distribution for your product or your service. It's a very simple idea that nobody seems to have caught on to in a big way. And the people who do it, I mean, man, and that's the other thing. Everyone, if you think about most advertising and marketing, it's very linear. It's like I buy an ad, I bring in this many leads and so forth. If you think about an affiliate program, it's a logarithmic equation, right? It's not a linear equation. It's the chessboard thing. It's put a piece of rice on the first piece, the square on the chessboard and double it. I mean, by the time you get to people think, oh, well, there's going to be a lot, but not that much. I mean, when you do the math, it's insane, right? It's more rice than that's in the entire world or something. So that is what an affiliate program is all about. And so people really ought to get onto this ASAP.
Right, right. Completely agree on that. And what are some of the differences that you find, Sean, in like the US market or the Indian market in terms of like adaptation to the new technology and everything?
Well, I mean, it's an interesting one, right? Because I mean, I remember when I first came to India, I was blown away by the adoption of cell phones relative to the U.S. market, and I think it's because, I mean, those little Nokia phones were amazing,
Yeah.
but B, India had, because India was a little earlier it didn't have all the investment in the wireline phones and all the wires in the ground, so it was able to jump forward in technology. And I think that overall India has become a very technology focused country. So in that regard, I think technology is everywhere. I do think businesses there are still a little old school when it comes to technology adoption. But again, it's sort of like your coaching idea. Yeah, sure, it's going to be harder up front, but man, what a huge market that is yet to move over to this technology. So what a huge opportunity versus here. You walk into a lot of restaurants and they all have tap to pay, they all have digital POS systems. So imagine trying to sell a digital POS system. Like, good luck, they've already got one. What are you going to do? Versus in India, you might find that there's less of that, and as a result, it's a radically bigger market and a bigger market opportunity. And local businesses using text messaging or using digital invoicing, those sorts of things, bigger opportunities for markets that have yet to move over. So personally, I think it's a great time to be an agency in India.
Right, right. So do you feel like SaaS is at a point in India where like agency was when we started in like 2012, 2013, where it was like the very beginning of how the agency game started and all these influencers
Yeah,
came in the
yeah.
game.
Oh, I mean, I think things have gotten radically better. I also think if you look at India as a country, I mean, I think locally, the average business owner is earning more money. I think that the average GDP per capita has gone up. I think there's just a better opportunity to sell locally than it. I think it used to be that India was all about export, right? But I think there's a huge domestic market now. If you look at the domestic SaaS market there, it's crazy on fire. So there's just a ton of opportunity, I think, locally, domestically. Whereas before, I think agency owners had to look outside of India, but now I think you can really start to look inside of India and create an entire customer base there, because as a country it has come really, really far, and it's super cool to watch.
Right. And specifically, this one question I have, stuck in my mind, like, when it comes to go high level, how do you, have created the systems, the SOPs in your company to be able to systemize everything?
Oh, I have no idea. That's not my strength. I don't know. I mean, there's certainly things we have SOPs on, but I don't think that it has to be as rigid as that. I mean, I think being dynamic and flexible is incredibly important. There's certainly things that have to be all SOP. Like our support has, I mean, we have KPIs that are around it. We have SOPs that are around it, because that experience has to be consistent. And we've definitely come a long way doing that with dev. But I mean, I think when you're first getting started, the less you think about that stuff, the better. I think the best thing to do is just get out there, get going, and like get started. Like you can SOP later. I highly recommend just experimenting, being flexible, failing quick, trying crazy ideas. I mean, these are the things that are going to get you someplace. Don't spend a lot of time trying to plan ahead. I've seen some of the best laid plans blow up in absolute abysmal failure, because you just don't know the future, and you can't sort of say, like, you can't sit around thinking about it too long. And again, this isn't like heart surgery or something. It's not like anybody dies when you fail. But the longer you take to go out and figure out if it's a good idea or not, I mean, you're just hurting yourself at the end of the day. So yeah, don't worry about SOPs.
Right. And specifically, you mentioned about failure. So, like, when you started out, like, you had like some of the failures and everything, you learned from them. So, like, how
Many.
did you, like, how did you got that, like, the initial capital that is required, like, start a SaaS company?
Well, early on, I worked in I worked in the basement, and lucky for me, my wife was willing to go and work and fund me. So I got spouse funding initially, and although it wasn't for too long, it was enough for me to kind of get started. I've always spent below my means. I had savings, you know, and again, I started small and grew, and then I sold my first company, my first successful software company, and again, not enough to retire, but enough to fund the start of High Level. But again, even if you have let's say you have to have a job or something, like, work after hours, like, don't, try to find a job that's, good enough, but nothing too crazy. And, so you can spend as much of your time as possible on your own endeavors, but there's many ways to go about this, and I don't think there's any one route to success there. And the nice thing about this is it's about focusing on sales, and it's about getting out and making things happen. The good news is I don't think you need a ton of funding for this kind of thing.
Mm-hmm. Okay, like, so do you mind sharing, like, how much was the initial capital that you used for starting JHL?
Oh gosh, probably too much. I don't know. It was probably like $50,000, but we probably burned. I mean, but it was Varun and I doing all the software engineering because we're engineers. But we like burned like 10 grand on a worthless website. I mean, it's beautiful. Don't get me wrong. It just didn't ever produce anything. And I'm trying to think what else we spent money on. We didn't really spend a lot of money initially. I mean, we just did everything for free. It's Facebook groups and talking to people and that kind of thing. I think most of the money that we spent just kind of went to keeping the lights on and paying our bills. But and I'm sure I had to spend more money than he did. He definitely lives in a lower cost geo. He's in Qatar, so but yeah, so I mean, just random business expenses, but honestly, we didn't need a ton of capital to get going. And you're talking about a software company. I would say that most people can build on top of High Level for radically less than that.
Mm-hmm. Got it. So just one or two more questions, Shaun, before we wrap up. So, like, what would be your number one advice for somebody? As again, I just asked this question before, but somebody who wants to,
Yeah.
let's say, was in India but wants to start like a SaaS, let's say in US or some other country, like, what should be their action plan? Of course, they have to build a MVP,
Well,
test it out, and
yeah,
then
Well, these days I would think about doing something like building it on top of high level. You realize you can white label us, you can add custom code to us, and you get a ton of the most basic features on top of the platform. But the biggest thing I would tell you to do is before you do anything is go and talk to your customers and tell them what you're going to build and tell them what you're going to charge and ask them if they'd pay you for that and see if they say yes. Because if they don't, don't do anything. Figure out a better idea, because the issue you'll run into time and time again is people will sit around and they'll ideate and they'll build stuff. And I'm guilty of this too. I mean, we built an entire product for HVAC companies and field service guys, and we spent 6 months doing it. This is probably where a lot of our money went. And then we brought it out and we're like, hey, look, check this out. And they're like, I don't get it. We've seen this before. This thing has like a tenth the features of everybody else. Why would we buy this from you? And we're like, oh, that sucks. That was a big failure. So had we just asked people initially, we would have known. So the number one problem with software companies isn't making software. In fact, if anything, it just gets cheaper by the minute. ChatGPT is starting to write code for people, right? So at the end of the day, like, how do you sell it? Distribution is the hard part. So go figure out who you're selling to, how you're going to reach them in a scalable way. These are the bigger challenges of SaaS, not writing code.
Right. For writing code, you can just, as you said, hire somebody.
Well, you can do a lot of things, but I'm just saying you can end up making a beautiful piece of software that never goes anywhere and does anything. It's just very few people have ever come to me and said, look, I have already pre-sold 1,000 customers on this. I just need someone to write the code. No one ever says that to me. And I think it's because that's the harder thing to figure out. So, and I know some very successful entrepreneurs. That's exactly how they started. They went out and they got 100 people to hand them money. And they said, listen, they made a deal with them. Like, look, I'm going to charge you X a month. I want your first month's payment right now in cash. And if I don't deliver in 3 months, I'll give you the money back. If not, I'm going to keep the money and give you the product. And if you can get people to make that bet with you, you're onto something.
Yep. Got it. And my final question to you, Shaun, would be like, what are some of the biggest, lessons that you have learned from some of the failures, some of the, successes you have had so far in SaaS specifically?
Sure. Yeah. I would say that, again, my biggest problem was just that we spent a lot of time engineering stuff that no one ever used, because we didn't do a good enough job getting out there and talking to our customers and, really trying to understand the market you're serving and going to whatever lengths you have to. Like if you have to, if you want to serve, I don't know, like lawn mowing guys, go mow lawns for a couple of weeks and see how that business really works. Do a ride along with your customers. Like even if you have to pay your customers, like I've paid several people to come in and just what's your hourly rate? Like, I will pay you to come in and give me advice or tell me what's wrong or tell me what you like or tell me what you don't like. Like really, really, really get in with your customer to understand if you're able to solve their problem, because that's the way you're going to ultimately win. Software is just a means to an end when it comes to solving a problem using technology versus whatever way they're currently doing it. And you really have to understand, is there enough value there for someone to take what they're currently doing and throw it aside and replace it with whatever you're offering? And that's the biggest challenge. So you really have to understand if what you're creating is that much more valuable.
Right. Got it. Well, thanks a lot, Sham, for it's been a pleasure having you on the podcast. And I'm sure
100%.
the audience is going to find it really, really valuable. And I'm really, really excited for your journey in India and all the upcoming projects that you have inside this year. So really look forward to that.
Yeah, likewise. Well, thank you for inviting me. It was sure great to be here.
Yeah, thanks a lot.